Hello, hello.
I'm Savannah.
And I'm Elysia.
And this is Burden of Proof.
You were really jamming out there.
I am. I love our music. It's so sexy.
Schmexy.
Schmexy.
Well,
welcome back, everybody.
Yes. Welcome.
Yes. A little bit of business before we jump in today.
Oh.
Hello, Maria. Maria started out as a free member of our Patreon and has since upgraded to our BOP premium package.
Yep.
$3 a month.
Woo woo.
So thank you. We want to give you a special shout out. We love you so much.
Yeah. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Hopefully we see you at the live stream.
Yes. We're getting back on track in November.
Yes.
And as always, you have until the end of the year, everybody, to be a founding follower.
In the
$3 tier.
Mm-hmm.
The free or $3 tier. There will be more to come in the new year.
Yes.
Next week's Thanksgiving.
Yeah. But we will have a case. So when you're ready to stop listening to your uncle talk about politics, because you know it'll come up, you can definitely just hang out with us. Alicia's bringing us a great Thanksgiving case. So,
yep.
Woohoo.
Grab your earbuds.
And I think that's it. I think we can get in.
Sounds good.
Cool. Well, today, folks, we are doing a case that has been on my cases to cover list on my docket for a very long time, and I finally did it.
Very good.
Elysia gave me a thumbs up, but you can't see that, so thought I'd tell you verbally.
I'm just encouraging you.
Thank you. It's got quite the headline. The Pizza Killers.
The Pizza Killers?
The Pizza Killers.
Did they kill pizza?
Probably. But we're not talking about that.
I can crush some pizza.
I bet so.
I love pizza. I know you don't.
I'm not. I listen. People are gonna come for me. I don't eat bread, so pizza and I do not mix. But I appreciate pizza for what it is and what it's bringing to the world, which is joy.
It has brought me a lot of joy over the years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of weight too, I'm sure, but a lot of joy.
Mostly joy. So we are going to rural New Jersey today. So close your eyes, picture it.
I've been there.
Late 90s.
I was there in the late 90s.
97. We're going to some antique shops, lots of farmland, cold winters, and a road with a tough history. This was a small one-stoplight town with a graduating class from 4 different towns being around 1,000 kids.
Okay.
It was itty bitty. One of my main sources for this case is a book called The Pizza Killers, Just for the Thrill of It by David Laiosa, who grew up in the Franklin area. And I will say, he did lots of research for this case. However, as most true crime books, I struggled with it. It's on Kindle Unlimited if you're a Kindle Unlimited reader and you'd like to give it a go. But I think we've talked about sometimes true crime books are very difficult to read, and this was one of them. So we need some punctuation.
Okay.
Yeah. But there was lots of interesting perspectives, especially as somebody who grew up in the town. And he also grew up with a lesbian mom who her and her partner lived on Scott Road, which is the road that we are going to be talking about today.
Okay. So close. Very close.
Yes. So growing up on Scott Road and throughout his childhood, he routinely was bullied for having 2 moms. He recalls one time this group of kids, the same group of kids that we'll be discussing later, drove down the road and threw rocks through the living room window, screaming horrible threats to the family about their sexuality.
Mm.
And to be honest, it didn't seem like the community around them struggled to accept them, just this group of teens, because the cop who arrived and picked up these kids was so upset by the situation that he pulled over to the side of the road and asked them, why would you do this?
Okay.
And Thomas, one of the teens in the car, didn't really have a good answer. And Thomas wouldn't have a good answer later either. Thomas Koskovich was born on May 6th, 1978. His parents unfortunately left him behind, and he was raised by his grandmother, who struggled with addiction in any form. Drugs, alcohol, gambling, you name it. He spent a lot of time with his uncle, whose name was Leonard. And Leonard was a great influence, I'm sure you can imagine.
Well, it sounds like the whole family was a great influence.
Mm-hmm. He encouraged Thomas to use drugs at a young age and involved him in the prep work of narcotics that Leonard sold. As young as like 10.
Yeah, because nobody's going to be looking at a 10-year-old selling drugs.
Right. Well, he wasn't selling the drugs. He was just like prepping the drugs, whether that be like counting them or...
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you said or implied that he was helping to sell them as well.
No.
That young, but he was just helping distribute them.
Mm-hmm.
No. He was helping in the warehouse.
Yes. I'm assuming was like a kitchen table.
Yes.
So that's Thomas. So no wonder we're here talking on a true crime podcast about Thomas Koskovich.
Yeah.
Okay. And our next major player is Jason Vreeland. That's a V. Vreeland. Jason was born September 5th, 1979, which makes him a Virgo. And he moved around a lot as a student and struggled with being bullied no matter where he ended up. His arm was broken, and at one point he was dragged off a school bus by a bully while the driver did nothing to stop them. So when he was 14, he started hanging out with the druggies and started using to fit in. I'm not sure exactly what they were using, but I'm going to assume at the bare minimum, marijuana. That's just the baseline.
In the 90s, yeah, that was the bare minimum.
Right. And Jason said he stuck around with these kids because they didn't pick on him like everybody else did. They were too high to care, likely. And they just let him kind of hang out with them. So Jason and Thomas were two high school students in Franklin, New Jersey, started hanging out in March of either 1997 or March of the prior year. I get mixed reviews.
Okay.
Either way, they hadn't known each other their whole lives. Like this is a relatively new friendship. It had either been just a few months or up to a year that they'd known each other.
Okay. Yeah.
They met through the local punks, through the local group of teen gangsters.
I was going to say, this is the 90s, so are we talking actual punks?
No,
I
mean
talking...
like a Scooby-Doo villain going, "Those punk kids!"
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not actual like cool punks.
Yeah.
And they hung out a handful of times in like group settings, but they didn't really hang out a ton like one-on-one.
Yeah.
And the whole group of teens was just full of them acting out and being hooligans, and it's hard to say if they were acting out because they were evil and full of hate or if it was just because that's what you do in a small town.
Yeah.
I personally think that it was probably a mix of both, that we had some leaders and some followers who were just kind of bored. Who's to say?
Makes sense.
Early of April 1997, Thomas and his 19-year-old friend Michael, who's a different player he's a side player.
Okay.
His name's Michael. They went to Adventure Sports. And Adventure Sports is kind of like a Bass Pro. Sells hunting, camping, fishing equipment. And, this is America, so of course they also sell guns.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. So they decided that Michael would stay in the car and that Thomas would go inside. And inside, Thomas stole 3 guns. A .22 revolver, a .44 semi-automatic pistol, and a .40 caliber gun.
He stole them.
Yep. And he walked right out because the Adventure Sports security system did not go off.
But they just, had the guns where you could just grab them?
Yes. As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And Michael stayed in the car, and when the security system didn't go off, Michael got to live his baby driver dream and be the getaway driver.
Alrighty.
Now, I haven't seen this person, but I don't think they look like Ansel Elgort.
Probably not.
Also, not a big Ansel Elgort fan anymore, but I did love that movie. I donate money to domestic violence every time I watch it. Anyway.
Cool.
Michael was told that the original plan was to steal the guns and then sell them and then use the funds from the sale to buy cocaine and then to sell the cocaine. This was done to avoid a paper trail with the cocaine.
Okay.
So they didn't steal the guns to become gangster arms thieves.
Gotcha.
They did it to become gangster drug dealers.
I mean, who am I to judge a young
hustler?
A young hustler, drug entrepreneur.
Right.
Who am I to judge how he goes about that?
Right. I mean, it seems like a long process, like too many steps, but and Michael was all on board with this multi-step plan. But then Thomas was like, well, we have the guns, so we should go ahead and use them to commit a robbery just to get some extra cash. And Michael was like, I mean, yeah, okay, I guess. And then when Thomas continued devolving that plan, he was like, I'm going to step back. I'm out. Deuces.
Fair.
And I can say, if you're planning something shady with somebody and the plan keeps changing, it's probably pretty smart to say, you're not a reliable person and I can't commit crimes with you anymore. I need a type A criminal.
You need to stick to the plan.
Yes. I need to know where the parking is. I need to know how much the parking is. Do we have to have cash?
I am ride or die, but I will have questions.
Yes. Yes. I need that on a shirt. Oh my gosh. I am ride or die, but I will have questions. I'll take it to my grave, but I have to know.
Where is the parking?
Yeah.
Will there be food?
Right. Do I need to eat before I go? Like, what's the vibe?
Yeah.
So since the group had these guns, and the days leading up to the big event, Thomas and his friends would go driving in through the woods, shooting at random things in the night. Super safe, right? They reported that they were low on ammunition, so they were mainly shooting at signs, wildlife, or any trees that seemed to be good targets. This just continued to amp Thomas up, and he began to express to his friend Jason that he had the desire to know what it was like to kill someone. He told Jason that he had thought about and planned before that they could easily kill a pizza delivery driver because they were easy to lure, and the two started planning a crime spree that would start with murder and continue with looting and grand theft auto.
There's too many things. There's too many things going through my head of what to say. Like, how do you decide pizza delivery guys? That's our target.
And you know what? This is something that with Thomas had been in his head for a while. Like, I think this is something he had genuinely, like, this was like a fantasy.
Like, I get if you're thinking about robbing or mugging somebody, why you would target a pizza delivery guy. But to specifically be like, I want to kill them, they seem like a good target. Wow. Okay.
I agree. It's just there's a lot of jumps there. But
yeah.
On April 19th, 1997, they put this plan into motion. But just down the street at a Dunkin' Donuts, the two boys had asked to borrow a phone book and began making various calls to a pizza place nearby. I also like to mention that they got the coins, like the quarters, to use the payphone from Thomas's girlfriend at the time. Like, they didn't even have their own quarters. You guys were bums. But whatever.
No scrubs.
Yes. And they called a bunch of pizza places, and it was really late at night, and so they gave the address of this abandoned house that they had planned to do this at, which we will talk about in a little bit. The house has its own lore, okay? But all the places said, no, it's too late, we're not delivering anymore. And one of the first places that they called was Tony's Pizza and Pasta. And when they called, Jason asked if Jeremy was working. Now, Jeremy, Jason, and Thomas, particularly Jeremy and Jason, all grew up together. And they weren't like besties, but their parents were friends. And so they would grow up like playing, hanging out together at parental events. So if their parents were together, they would see each other, they would hang out. And Jason grew up going to Tommy's, and Jeremy had worked there for a while. One thing that David said in the book that I read was that because the town was so small, jobs were really scarce. And so if you had one, you worked there a really long time. Like, you didn't let it go. And so Jeremy had worked at Tony's for a while.
Okay. I have one question.
Yes.
Who were you talking about in the beginning when you said they weren't lifelong friends? They were only friends about a year. Was that
Thomas and Jason.
Okay. But just now you said that the three of them were lifelong friends.
Thomas is not included in that, really. Like, he knew Jeremy because
Jeremy and Jason were lifelong friends.
Thomas knew Jeremy as well, but the three of them weren't together as friends.
Okay.
It's a small town, so kind of everybody knows everybody.
Yes. I just needed to clarify.
Totally.
Okay. Now I'm tracking.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry if that was confusing. They all know each other separately, but Jason and Jeremy were closer.
Gotcha.
I say closer loosely, but knew each other more.
Okay.
So he knew that if they called Tony's, he needed to ask if his friend was working.
Right.
And they said, yes, he is. So they hung up and they called other places. But when nobody else was delivering, they ended up calling Tony's back and placing an order. And it was like, they were like, it's really late, but we'll do it. It's the last one we'll do for the night. Sure. So they placed an order for 2 pizzas and they went off to the house to meet them, knowing that Jeremy was probably the person delivering the pizzas.
Wow. Okay.
So Jeremy was born Jeremiah Giordano, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering that last name. It's hard. And he came from a large extended family and had worked for Tony's for a long time, as I mentioned. He grew up on the wrestling team and was very loved by his mother and father, Loretta and Joseph. They were a church-going family, attending their Baptist church every Sunday. As an adult fresh out of high school, he continued to live with his family and help them make ends meet. He had other sisters, so he was there helping his family out with his siblings.
Yeah, the only thing that surprised me in all of that was that they're an Italian family that goes to Baptist church.
Yeah.
Sorry if that's a stereotype.
We don't mean it.
But I'm from Ohio and I've had several friends and weirdly dated a few Italians and I married an Italian.
You did.
And all of them were Catholic.
Yes.
And everybody that you hear about, yeah. So I'm sorry. I didn't create the stereotype. I'm just pointing it out.
Right. So Jeremy worked at Tony's, and the owner of Tony's is actually not Tony.
What?
His name is Giorgio Gallara, and he started working at Tony's Pizza and Pasta in 1988. And in 1993, after graduating high school, he saved up and bought the restaurant from the owners at 21 years old.
Oh, okay.
Money moves, honestly. Money moves. And he did this because when he was really young, he had a daughter named Caitlin, and his baby mama / girlfriend, love of his life, Lauren, he and Lauren loved to go camping. They loved their daughter, and they were working really hard to build a great life together. That night in April, when they accepted the late night call, Giorgio was hesitant to let his employee go out on the delivery alone. It was a later call than they normally would take, and he just had a really bad feeling about it. And with this, he decided that he would go with Jeremy before coming back and meeting up with Lauren to go camping. And the two head off to Scott Road. On Scott Road, there was an abandoned house. It was originally the home of an elderly woman who had passed away, and now it was, quote, something out of an Alfred Hitchcock movie, with rundown shutters practically falling off the windows. The grass was overgrown, and it sat near a bog with weeds as tall as a basketball hoop.
Some tall weeds.
Some tall weeds, and that is an eerie sight.
Yes.
On a cold April night. It was very dark. It was really late. It was like 11 o'clock. Jeremy and Giorgio pull up to the abandoned house to find Jason and Thomas standing in the driveway. Giorgio, who I believe was on the passenger side because he had just tagged along with Jeremy, rolled down the window and told the two kids that they owed $16.50 for the pizzas. Jason turned to Thomas and whispered something about having the money. And then Thomas said, no, I got it, reached into his pocket and pulled out the .75 caliber semi-automatic pistol and immediately began firing. Jason also began firing as he had the .22. After the shots were fired into the car, the two assailants pulled Jeremy and Giorgio out of the vehicle and put them on the road and shot them more to ensure that they were dead. It was determined by forensics that Thomas killed Jeremy and that Jason actually took the fatal shot for Giorgio with the .22.
I have no words.
Yep.
That's so brutal.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yep. One thing to note is that Thomas is the one who killed Jeremy by shooting into the car, and I believe that Jeremy had 4 bullet wounds that were susceptible to be deathly. So there were 8 shots fired in the car.
Okay.
4 of them hit Jeremy. Giorgio was killed with 1 wound from a .22 to the back of the head. Sort of execution style, honestly. Yeah. So what happened in the car and what happened when Giorgio was pulled out of the car, whether or not he was killed. My theory, honestly, my theory is that they weren't expecting 2 people.
Yeah.
So when they showed up, Thomas started shooting into the car, killed Jeremy, and then when they realized they were going to have to kill Giorgio too, they pulled him out and Jason shot him execution style. That is my theory. We will never know what actually happened that night.
Yeah.
But that is my personal theory. Because Jason swears to this day that he had just shot into the dash, that he did not shoot at Jeremy or Giorgio.
Well, okay. I don't know, call me crazy, but you're shooting in their vicinity.
Right.
You might be trying to miss them, but you're still shooting at them close enough that, like...
Right. I mean,
I'm not a professional.
His story is that he shot in order to prove his loyalty to Thomas.
Yeah.
Because Thomas was older. Thomas was cooler. I mean, Thomas was a year older. He wasn't that much older. Okay. But that's his story, and he's sticking to it.
Okay.
Just keep that in the back of your head. They went back to Thomas's car, and on the way, Thomas says, I can't believe we did this. I can't believe we did this. Like, he's all excited. And Jeremy just exclaims, I love you, man. And they hug before they get in the car, and they leave the scene.
What? I love you, man.
I love you, man.
I love you, man. You just made me a murderer. Yay.
Right.
I don't
get it.
That's horrifying.
Oh, yeah. It's terrifying. And they just left everything there. They just truly did not think they were ever going to get caught. They were like, I got away with stealing these guns, like, and nothing happened. So.
Okay.
On their way back to Thomas's house, they stopped at a church where they got out and they made the sign of the cross before continuing on their way. Take that as you will, honestly. And eventually they got to Koskovich's house, where they took off their bloody clothes and placed the guns into plastic bags and hid them under a pane of glass in the yard. I'm assuming that this was like covered glass or broken glass that was difficult to see under, but I feel like that's giving them a lot of credit.
I guess I'm not fully understanding. Glass in the yard?
Yeah, they had like a pane of glass in the yard that was like laying down on like something. Okay. And they just hid it underneath there. I'm just...
Boys, you can see through glass.
Right. So 2 locals had decided to go look around the Scott Road area to scope out some fishing spots late that night. Don't question it. They're probably fishing for like nocturnal fish or something. What is it? You go flounder fishing at night, right?
I don't know anything about fishing.
I think you go flounder fishing at night. And you do like... There's other types of fishing. I don't know what kind of fishing they were doing, but that's what they were doing. Okay.
Okay.
Don't question it. We don't fish.
I don't fish, so I'm not going to question it.
Right. And they were driving in the area when they stumbled upon Jeremy's car, and they thought they had found a wreck. So they were like, oh my gosh, we need to check and make sure that like people are conscious, if there's any people here, if they need medical attention. Like they were worried somebody had slammed into something and knocked themselves out, and they needed like to go to the hospital.
What would make... Oh, they're
it's
probably broken glass and dark. And,
right.
Okay.
It's just a mess. So
okay.
They show up, they start looking around, and they find Jeremy and Giorgio's bodies, and they immediately call the police, who arrive pretty quickly because this is really insane for this small town.
Right.
News broke early the next morning, and reports started coming in. And in the meantime, the police had begun their independent investigation. They started at Tony's Pizza and Pasta, where they were able to trace the last call. And in the book, the author goes into detail describing where the Dunkin' Donuts was in relation to Tony's. And like I said, this is like a one stoplight town, so everything is super close together. And when I say they were just down the road, like they were really close when they're making this call from the Dunkin' Donuts to the Tony's.
Right.
So they just go down there and they talk to the people at Dunkin', and they're able to really quickly get the security camera footage and narrow down their suspects.
Of course.
Mind you, once they had the footage of the boys talking on a phone, like, it was not hard because, again, small town, they know these kids. Yeah. And soon after the murders in the morning, like I said, everybody knew pretty quick. A friend had called the police, a friend of Thomas's, and said that he had told her that day, on the 19th, that he wanted to kill a pizza delivery person.
And then lo and behold, 2 delivery people get killed.
Right. And now, while it's not the brightest thing to tell somebody that you want to kill somebody right before you do it, I understand why she didn't think anything of this at the time, because Thomas was like, he was really edgy. He was like a late 90s, early, like edgy guy who he was known to like jump at people in the hallways and just be really antagonistic. So if he was like, yeah, I'm going to kill a pizza delivery person, she's probably like, yeah, okay, Thomas, whatever.
Yeah. You didn't take those kids very seriously back then. Because remember, this was 97.
Mm-hmm.
The first major school shooting that everybody heard about was Columbine, which didn't happen until later in 97 or 98, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right about that.
So, because I know it happened after I graduated, but I graduated a semester early. And I think it might have been in the spring of 97.
Yeah.
So...
Well, and I think that's why I think I remember reading in an article from the New Jersey Herald that's why this case didn't really get so much media attention, is because Columbine happened really close to it. Gotcha. But I think it happened after, and this just kind of got swallowed up.
Yeah.
So, again, even directly after Columbine, people probably didn't. They thought that was a one-off.
Right. Exactly. That's my point.
Right.
I was in high school at that time. We did not. Kids would say crazy stuff. And you didn't take them seriously because none of us really knew anybody that did.
Right. Columbine was actually 2 years later, almost to the day, April 20th, 1998. 99, sorry.
99?
I did Google. It's 99.
Wow. Well, I remember where I was when I heard about it. And for some reason, I thought I had moved from that house before then. But apparently I didn't.
Whoopsies. So yeah. They got that report in, and then another resident on Scott Road reported that they had seen the car really late at night, and Thomas's car had some very defining characteristics. It was a blue Chevy Cavalier with a loud muffler and a damaged headlight, which was reported to them. So the police had plenty of reasons and evidence, so they went and arrested the pair on April 21st, 1997, just 2 days later. That's literally enough time for them to like have one day of investigation, and then the next morning they went and arrested them. It was really fast.
Yeah.
And so when they started searching the property, they found the blood-soaked clothing, the guns, and lo and behold, Giorgio's wallet. Dun dun dun.
These kids didn't think anything through.
No, but the wallet is important, and I'll tell you why. So Thomas confessed right away. I mean, pretty quickly, he just told police because he's not stupid. He's like, look, you have everything you could possibly need. So he tells him everything, but Jason claims, and still claims, that he did not shoot Giorgio. He says that he shot into the dash in order to prove his loyalty, but again, doesn't seem really likely to me. Thomas, since he was an adult, originally got the death sentence and would go on to sit on death row for 13 years. Just for the record, the families of the victims did say in their victim impact statements that they did not wish for the death penalty.
Okay.
As for Jason, he was tried as a minor because New Jersey law did not allow for the execution of a minor. So because this was a crime that he could be eligible for the death sentence for, he was not allowed to be tried as an adult. Right. They had to try him as a minor. And he was sentenced to life and sent to a juvenile detention center. And it was there that he told somebody that they committed the crime simply because they wanted to know what it was like to kill someone. He still maintains, again, that he had nothing to do with it, and neither boy has ever apologized.
So, I absolutely am not shocked by this. But why do they do that? Why do you go and run your mouth saying we did this just as, just to see somebody die or just to kill somebody, but then your official claim is I didn't actually shoot him.
I just did it because Thomas told me to, and I wanted to
So does he give a detailed statement saying like that he handed off the 22 to Thomas and then Thomas shot the 22 in the final shot that hit?
Yeah, pretty much is what he's saying.
Okay.
Regardless of that, they know without a doubt that he was holding the 22. And that was Giorgio's cause of death. So Jason will have a chance for parole in October of 2044 when he will be 65 years old.
I mean,
what are you going to do? Thomas will be eligible for parole in 2072 at 94 years old. He was able to appeal his conviction with success. Nothing major during the guilt phase of the trial was overturned, but they did agree on several errors that had been made in regards to the sentencing phase.
Oh, okay.
So, let me tell you guys. This is our, 110th case or something like that. I've read a lot of court documents. This one was hard to read. It was really long. They repeated the facts many times in the appeal. It was really long. I don't know if it was the copy that I got off of Justia that didn't have any punctuation in it. It was a really long read, but
it had no punctuation.
I mean, it had some punctuation.
Oh.
But there were lots of run-on sentences that I've never seen a judge do. So I feel like whatever copy or transcription it was taken from, the original document, wasn't a great representation of the actual reports that the judges filed on the appeal panel.
Gotcha. Okay.
What I will say is I have been led to believe through reading the documents and through my research that the issue that they found with the sentencing phase had something to do with an evidentiary hearing or lack thereof that was held in the trial.
Okay.
So during the sentencing phase, what I think happened is that they had all of these evidentiary hearings lined up to say, these are the reasons why we have these mitigating factors that lead us to the death penalty. And I think there was an error there.
Gotcha.
I have read these documents several times, and I'm probably just missing it, and I apologize for that, but I can't seem to see exactly what made them change their minds.
Okay.
But what I do have is this blurb from the beginning, and I think that this is it's interesting. This is, quote, "In this capital case, defendant appeals his conviction and death sentence, claiming numerous errors by the trial court in both the guilt and penalty phases of trial. Further, he asserts that absent any trial errors, the sentence is disproportionate when compared to similar cases and should be vacated. We affirm the capital and non-capital convictions, but agree with defendant that certain errors were committed during the penalty phase warrant reversal of the death penalty. In the view of conclusion, we remand a new sentencing proceeding and do not address defendant's proportionality claims." So they said, yeah, we'll do a new sentence, but it has nothing to do with other cases. It has an issue with an error in your case.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting because I do think that it's kind of extreme for a death penalty.
To me, yeah, I don't know that it does. I mean, we hear of death penalty cases all the time of just killing one person. Mm-hmm. And so to me, what makes this case different? I think when I look at death penalty cases, I expect there to be some sort of more inhumane aspect to it. I mean, obviously this is horrible, but there wasn't sexual assault, there wasn't aggravating factors. Now they're saying the aggravating factor was the robbery because Jason and Thomas both, they don't refer to it as a murder. They always say the robbery, the robbery, the robbery. And that's why the wallet is so important. The original police reports do not mention anything about the wallet being missing. They did not think that this was a robbery. There was nothing to indicate it was a robbery. They didn't notice that the wallet was missing because nothing else important was missing from the car. Right.
The wallet is them saying, well, this was a robbery that we ended up killing. It was a robbery gone wrong, and that's why it's an aggravating factor.
Fair, I guess.
When we've heard them say to multiple people that they did this because they wanted to know what it felt like to kill somebody, not because they were trying to rob them.
Yeah. Which to me is more horrifying than trying to rob somebody and having it go wrong.
Oh, I agree.
So.
But I think a robbery is considered an aggravating factor in a murder case.
Yeah. You're committing one crime and then you commit the murder during the other crime. Right. Yes, I agree.
So regardless of their reasoning, they did resentence the case, and Thomas was sentenced to life. And as I mentioned, he will be eligible for parole when he's 94. Jason continues to blame Thomas. And I wanted to do a little bit of a where are they now, but not anything to do with those dirtbags.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I was going to say, where are they now? In prison.
In prison still. Don't you worry. But I wanted to talk about Jeremy's sister, Teresa. Jeremy's sister has opened up a catering business in a deli, all in her brother's name. It's called Jeremiah's. And there are framed pictures and artwork throughout the whole building talking about his life. And not as a remembrance of his death, but she says it's very intentionally done as a reminder of his life.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really sweet thing, and I wanted to shout that out.
Not that I have any big desire to go to New Jersey, but if I ever do,
we'll be going to Jeremiah's.
I'll stop into Jeremiah's.
Yes. Now, one other thing I thought was interesting that I wanted to mention. I recently did a folie à deux case. Mm-hmm. And now I wanted to talk about the difference between why this is not something considered a folie à deux case.
Okay.
There was no trauma bonding or escalating event. So folie à deux is the madness of two, right?
Right.
There's something usually leading to a mental health crisis that leads to a crime or a murder. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen here. There was no delusion. There was no escalation. It was they decided they wanted to kill somebody, so they did. So yeah. I thought this was a good example case of what the difference could be. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to give that.
I agree.
Little tidbit there.
Yeah, this doesn't sound like it was really a build up to.
No, yeah. I mean, the robbery of the adventure sports was, I think, the escalation for Thomas.
Yeah,
because I think personally, there's no reason to believe that Jason would have continued to go on and commit crimes if he had not been there with Thomas. I will admit that.
Right.
However, there's all the evidence to support that Thomas was going to do this regardless.
Yeah.
So I do agree that his sentencing should have been harsher.
You know how I am with the death penalty. I'm kind of...
Yeah.
I don't... Yeah. I'm not like, yay, pro death penalty, but I'm also not totally against it. Mm-hmm. When I said that I didn't see a huge difference between some of the cases that we've covered or even heard about, and it wasn't like, yes, I totally think he should get the death penalty. Right. I just mean, like, literally, I sometimes question, besides the law being that, obviously some states don't have the death penalty, but even comparing case by case within the same state, sometimes I question, like, why was that person sentenced to death and this one wasn't? And it just is what it is. And you know what the difference is, and this is why I have a problem with the death penalty, which we've talked about. The death penalty in this case was decided by jurors. Right. Which I disagree with. I don't think that a public jury should be put in that position where they have to make that decision. Yeah. Anyway, that's the case. That's the case. And Giorgio's daughter and Lauren have been pretty open and have struggled since their dad's and boyfriend's passing. And, it put a strain on the whole, on Jeremy's whole family. And they've openly talked about, like, that was hard. Yeah. So, our hearts are definitely and our minds are definitely with them. And we hope that we did your story justice. And yeah, now my neurospicy brain has a very important question. Yes. Okay. And I've saved it. Okay. So that I did not seem insensitive. Okay. During the sensitive parts. Yes. Did they take the pizzas? They did not take the pizzas. You sons of bitches. They wasted the pizzas. You sons of bitches. I know. I know. They did not take the pizzas. How are you going to tell me it's a robbery, but you don't take the pizzas? Right. Yeah. And all you took was a wallet. You didn't even take, like, they didn't even have money from delivering pizzas over all night because you waited to call till too late. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like he was going to be carrying a ton of cash on him. He had already gone back to, like, cash out for the night. Right. Yeah. No, they didn't take the pizzas. And that leads us right into our emoji for the week. Yep. So if you're here and you want to participate and be entered in for Sunday shout outs, please leave me a pizza or a pasta emoji for our business hustler man, Giorgio Gallara. Mm-hmm. He was a business owner and a father. He was a real entrepreneur. He really was. He really was. And he started out, so he had worked at Tony's for, like, since he was a teenager. Yeah, since 88. Yeah. At least for 10 years at that point. Yeah. And he walked in that door in 88 and was like, one day I'm going to own this place. And then he did. Yeah. So mad respect to my bro. Yep. Thank you guys for listening. Till next time. Bye. Bye.
Thanks for listening, guys. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at burdenofproofpod and email us at burdenofproofpod@gmail.com.